The music went quiet, so I assume that's my cue. Welcome everybody to Beyond the Buzz, our panel today. That's my alarm telling me I'm supposed to be here. Okay. Yes, Beyond the Buzz, smarter AI for smarter enterprise. If you're in this room, that's great because we're going to be talking about finding the right tools for your business, but also how to make them work for you. Just real quick before we start asking our questions to them, let's ask questions to all of you. Show of hands, who here feels like they're playing catch up with AI? Who here feels that you maybe got on the AI train early, but you kind of feel like a guinea pig? You know, a half-baked tool is being tested on you. And then is there anybody here who is unsure of where AI is going in 2026 and are concerned about how that's going to impact your business? I see some of the same hands went up for all three. And if you didn't raise your hand, please come see us afterwards. We can get you up here for a panel next year because we'd love your expertise as well. Yeah, let's just jump right in. I'm Brian Westover. I write for PC Mag. I write about AI, among other things. But I'm not the expert that you're here to see. These folks are. So let me introduce them. Let's see, starting at the far end, we have John Stevenson, the Chief Product Officer at PTC. He's got decades of experience in engineering, as well as the software tools for engineering, applying AI to physical design and manufacturing. So he's our expert in real-world results, where AI success turns into actual physical outcomes. Next, we have Nadia Hansen, lead go-to-market strategist at Salesforce, and also former Clark County CIO here in Las Vegas. As a strategist, AI strategist and educator, she is all about turning AI projects into measurable results, whether that's integrating AI into a business, into local government, or empowering end users. Next, we have Reena Jana from Google, where she's head of AI research and standards, trust and safety. She's our champion of responsible AI use from development to end user. I think I heard a bit of a sigh of relief once you heard we've got someone focused on trust and safety. And then finally, we have Satoru Yamamoto, Chief AI Officer at Dentsu Digital, and just recently named Deputy Chief AI Officer for Dentsu Japan. He's a true AI specialist who combines AI technology with enhanced digital marketing to unlock real performance gains. Fantastic group of people, definitely better to listen to than to me. So I'm going to ask them some questions. Let's start with procurement, and I'm going to direct this one to Nadia first. We know that companies are rushing to buy AI tools, but when a client comes to you, what's the number one wrong question that they're asking? What's the question that they should be asking?
Yeah, thank you, Brian, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to my city. I've lived in Las Vegas for 30 years, so enjoy everything that Vegas has got to offer. Now that we have that out of the way, I'll actually answer the question. So it's funny, there's a lot of excitement around AI. And one of the things that I get asked the most is, what AI tools should I use? And I think that's the wrong question to ask. Really, my question back is, what outcome are you trying to solve for? What are we trying to achieve? Because the tool is not the issue, because any tool between Salesforce and Google and Claude and ChatGPT and Perplexity and the list goes on, any tool can do what you want it to do. At the end of the day, the answer comes back to how efficient, what's the KPI, what's the baseline, how are we trying to measure it, what do you want it to achieve for you? And I think that's when the tool conversations come into play. So it's really kind of shifting our mindset around, if we're thinking about efficiency, if we're thinking about streamlining operations, if we're thinking about, I work a lot with government agencies, and they don't have enough budget, they never have enough resources, they never have enough time, and there's fires every day. So how do you go about meeting outcomes for the residents who are trying to get to some of those things that maybe makes government more efficient. So anyway, back to that, I think it's kind of reframing the question and saying, this is what I'm trying to achieve. Can AI help me with that? Rather than what tool do I start with?
And actually, Satoru, when we spoke, you had a slightly different take on that. I think the way you put it was not which LLM is best, but is AI even necessary?
Really? Nice to meet you, Satoru Yamamoto. And I'm really sorry, maybe as you noticed, I'm only one from Japan. My mother tongue is not English. Imagine you're speaking Japanese, so I'm really sorry. My listening and speaking is not so good. Let me use the automatic translator. By the way, your question is what's about? Yes. So maybe the answer is quite similar to Nadia-san. Maybe before we rush to which LLM, which model we use, we should consider that whether we should use AI. Sometimes we just using Excel or just classical programming, maybe we can solve. But again, the important thing is not which AI we use, but where we should AI is more important. Let me tell you the one. I really love this example. Okay, for example, what I did is just change the background of the banner, advertisement banner, moving. Just change the static to moving. But the result is really great. The conversion rate was 8 times bigger than static banner. But there's a trick, because YouTube video banner is very strong, but we cannot distribute static banner to YouTube. So what we should do is just change it to moving. Actually, it's not so attractive, but still we can distribute it on YouTube. And so there's that kind of trick. So what I say is not. So which AI we should use is just use you want, and then Gemini, and if we want, if it's popular, maybe basically it works well. So maybe not just that. Determine where we should use AI is more important. Make sense?
Yeah, so if I'm understanding this right, even before we talk about which tool is right for the job, we need to determine which jobs AI is right for. Okay. All right. And now, some companies, obviously not anyone in here, but some companies seem to be investing in AI just for AI's sake. And we've all seen the studies that show a massive number of these projects fail. Whether that's a failure to turn a profit, a failure to impact outcomes, a failure to scale within the business once you're going from pilot to a real project. What is the single biggest mistake that people are running into? What's causing this high failure rate? Let's start at the end with John.
That's a good question. I think we're seeing a phenomenon that we haven't seen before, in that boards of directors and executives see the tremendous productivity gains that computer programmers are achieving, for example, using AI, and they want to achieve the same productivity improvements in their enterprises using AI tools. So there's a tremendous pressure from the top to adopt tools. And the failures that we've seen aren't really technical failures, they're process failures, where people haven't taken time to put a plan in place, a plan for adoption, a plan for security, a plan for governance, a plan for process change before trying to adopt the tools. And I would say that the biggest weaknesses, the biggest pain points have been in adoption and governance, making sure that users can adopt the tools in their current workflows, in their current jobs, and that data only goes to the people that should have access within the company and outside of the company. So the failures are usually process related, not technical failures.
Now, Rena, this sounds like it's in your wheelhouse as well.
Well, I'm going to sort of reframe the question a little bit too, and really have people think about what does good look like and what does success look like. I listened into the first kickoff of this track, that earlier panel where people were sharing case studies. And I think looking at case studies from companies that are parallel to yours and finding out, what good looks like, what are the objectives that you want to achieve that could be achieved possibly with AI, what are those well-defined key results, and trying to understand that to measure what is success or potentially failure. I can give you some examples that we've shared before in terms of what has been helpful, and it's not necessarily in engineering, although I think 30% of new code at Google is written in part with AI. That's led to I think what we're measuring is like 10% engineering velocity, which is great. But there are other examples too of RFPs being written faster, or conversions from leads that have been analyzed by AI and sort of surfaced as more promising, and conversion rates getting better for some Google Cloud sales teams. Everything from our food services and our campuses, sort of analyzing patterns of eating and waste and improving that year over year. And so there are all of these opportunities, I think, to be creative with your teams if you really set those objectives and see if the AI tools can help you reach those objectives and to measure those key results.
Now, there's a lot of planning. And sometimes planning goes wrong. Nadia, I believe you had a thought about kind of the top-down versus bottom-up approach. Can you tell us about that?
So it's funny, kind of adding on to what you all just talked about, why projects don't scale and there's a lot of failure towards AI. I'm seeing people are very excited to do pilots. We want to do a proof of concept. How awesome is that? But where failure happens is you don't know how to scale. You don't know how to take this pilot into production because you don't have buy-in from the people who are going to be using it on a day-to-day basis. As an example, so I cover all of US, some parts of Canada, and Europe. And what's really interesting is there is a conversation around regulation, there's a conversation around policy, there's a conversation around, well, how do we manage the change within an organization? And I think sometimes all three of those get very confused because you're thinking, oh my gosh, one, I have to bring my people on board, I have to bring my stakeholders, I have to have them understand what the ROI is going to be. But I think where the failure happens, or the hardest part, is if you are not baselining your current processes. So let's say something right now takes 8 hours, or maybe it takes you 20 hours to finish a task. If you don't know that it takes 20 hours and you implement AI, and now that thing is maybe getting done in 5 minutes, that's great. But did you get the relevant answer? Did you get the output that you were looking for? If you're not measuring that, it doesn't matter how good the tools are, how good your processes are, you're not going to get that return on investment because you don't actually know where you're coming from. So that's part of the journey where I'm kind of seeing when I speak to a lot of different customers and different agencies, they're like, you know what? I don't know if we're gonna ever move to production because this pilot worked great, but my people, we wanna do another pilot. So you kind of get stuck in this like pilot recurrence phase. That's some of the things that I'm seeing, and it really, it's more of a top-down approach. Yes, we want to implement AI in the organization from the bottom. It's like, I don't know if we need it. So I think you kind of have to meet people in the middle. So education goes along a big way.
And in addition to the planning and figuring out what you're going to do, there's also additional groundwork that has to be laid first. John, can you talk to us about the importance of data and being ready with your data?
Sure. Clean data is the foundation for success in AI. Here's a real-world example. I've been advising a startup in the ECAD space, electrical design space, for about 3 years. And they were applying AI to circuit design, helping engineers design circuits quicker, selecting components for compatibility and fitness for operational environment and even availability. And right out of the gate, the results were pretty good 3 years ago, but accuracy stalled at about 80%. And the reason was that there are about 10 million data sheets in the wild that describe these electrical circuit components. And they use different terms to mean the exact same thing, and sometimes to mean opposite things. So because of that, the problem was intractable and the data needed to be cleansed. And it took about a year, 12 months of manual effort to cleanse the 10 million data sheets, but then after that, the results were fully accurate, and the solution is a much better solution for electrical circuit designers. So that's just one real-world example of why the data foundation is the key to success in AI. And I think that's true in every industry, in every example, in every application.
Now, Satoru, you had some thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, same as Johnson. The data preparation is the foundation of the AI success. I totally agree with you, but I have a little bit different idea. It is because LLM and AI is already quite smart enough, so which means we don't have a huge big data. What I'm saying is, so maybe for Google and Salesforce, maybe you need big data in order to personalize for every single people. Of course, in that case, we need big data. But imagine that in order to optimize the marketing campaign, we human beings only need maybe at maximum 50 A/B test result. It's not huge data. But what we need is it's not big, but it should be good data. For example, we need a reason why we conducted that kind of A/B test. So what I'm saying is the big data is already inside the head of AI. So we should prepare small but good data. Let me give you one example. For example, I prepared the 50 ex post of one theme park company, and even just using that 50 post, we can quite accurately predict the number of likes. Maybe it's a bit different from the era of machine learning. In the era of machine learning, we need at least 10,000 or a million data, but now it's different. So all we should do is prepare the beautiful, meaningful, it doesn't have to be big, but meaningful data is more important.
Now, Rena, you had a thought when we spoke. It's kind of along similar lines about the frameworks we use to approach AI. Can you speak to that a bit?
Oh, yeah. So I think everybody, you started out with those questions about, who it feels that they need to catch up, who feels sort of new to AI, et cetera, et cetera. And you also talked about a lot of excitement around AI. Sometimes people think we need to rethink a lot of our frameworks, including around responsibility. Okay, and I think also in terms of I'm sure a lot of you are thinking about agents. A lot of you are thinking obviously about Gen AI and LLMs. But there are a lot of enduring frameworks that could be applied as we continue to sort of adjust for the new types of AI. So that might sound, wait, I thought everything has to be new. But when you think about it, a lot of the sort of responsibility issues are similar to content safety issues. It's one reason why our responsible AI efforts also have really scaled up in our trust and safety organization, where there have been years and even decades of experience with content safety online. There are also enduring responsibility frameworks like from the UN, Declaration on Human Rights, etc., that don't change when a model is being updated. And so just been really thinking about those frameworks and how those could stay durable, could be sort of starting points as you dive into different types of AI. We're now moving into sort of beyond LLMs and maybe into agentic a little bit, but these are a lot of questions that we're thinking about where it does, it can feel overwhelming Do we need a lot of new frameworks? Yes, we do. But to get started, there are some enduring ways that we can sort of have that baseline.
So, just to make sure I'm understanding right, so you don't necessarily have to rethink everything. You need to think about the new tools you have, but then also apply the knowledge that you have that is established and proven, and stick with some of what works.
Exactly. And then I just want to add to, I think in the conversation about all of these new AI tools, like there's such an opportunity to be creative. I think we're all talking about our teams, and you're thinking about your teams, how these tools help people brainstorm or vibe code with natural language, do all of these amazing things. And I think we can also think about, again, sort of not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but getting creative and borrowing some other frameworks as well. So, for example, red teaming for safety, borrowing that from security, borrowing, again, some concepts from content safety that we're looking at the outputs of generative AI and agents. So, looking around and thinking about, in a creative way, what are some of the sources that you can apply as you're building these systems?
If I may add to your point, ethics is a huge part of the conversation. So when we were talking about not every tool is going to fit every outcome, so coming back to use cases as an example. I had a customer who was trying to use AI for human resources to vet candidates who are applying for certain jobs. When you talk about vetting candidates and you are autonomously letting AI make some decisions, from a personal standpoint, I don't think we're quite there from a maturity level. You really have to have very good training data in order to get the result you're looking for. So as an example, and I did this with ChatGPT. ChatGPT came out, 2022, something like that, and I started using it. And when I asked ChatGPT, what do you think I look like based on everything that I fed you, in 2022, it actually came up with an image of a bearded man with glasses and a weird-looking coat. They're like, yeah, you ask all kinds of tech questions, so you must be a bearded guy, right? Okay, cool. I get it, you don't have enough context or training data. Fast forward, 2025, I just did this last year. Oh my God, 25 was last year, yeah. So I just did this exercise again. This time it did come back and said, oh, by the way, you are a female, but it contrasted me into something that I would never. I've uploaded my selfies, I've posted enough context in there to train it, but it's still not quite there yet. So the point I'm trying to make is, when you're talking about trust and safety and bias, you can't use AI for everything. AI has been around since 1956, but there's a predictive aspect, there's a generative aspect, there's an agentic AI aspect. You really got to understand what is it good at and what things are not quite there yet from a maturity level.
Well, that leads us really right into the topic of trust. Some of the biggest worries for many businesses are centered on trust and safety. How do we, move beyond the vibes of this tool seems good to verifying that a tool is safe and responsible? That's for Rena.
Yeah, I mean, you're starting, some of you might be familiar with the fact that there are some industry, like real industry standards that are coming up. If you're familiar with the ISO 42001 standard that was first published, I think at the end of 2023, there already are best practices that are bubbling up into sort of consensus-based standards, and tools can be certified against them. I think there's something like 80 standards that for AI and AI safety that might be in process in 2026 alone. So really thinking about these sort of global, international standards that can be helpful. Those are starting points.
I think that speaks to where AI is now versus where it was 2-3 years ago. It's professionalized to a very high degree, and these are becoming reliable tools. But there's still a wide variety. John, in engineering, you're dealing with the need for precision, design, physical safety. How are you approaching that?
Well, when people think about trust for AI, they typically think about things like security, making sure they're not opening up new vulnerabilities, zero-day vulnerabilities like prompt injection attacks or data exfiltration vulnerabilities, or they think about data governance, making sure that the data stays within the enterprise's boundaries. But you also need to think about the accuracy of the results. Today, AI is great when the problem can be reduced to one of semantics and syntax, or if you can accept imprecise results, for example, when you're generating images or videos. But our tools are used to generate manufacturable geometry, which needs to be accurate to floating point precision and very accurate geometry. So that's a whole new world for AI, and that's the new frontier, applying AI to the physical world. So when you use AI, you need a plan to measure the accuracy of the results before you can fully trust it. And that's the world we live in.
Well, this kind of speaks back to what we said before about having AI as the right tool for the right job. Because if you're talking about text and images, some imprecision is annoying, but acceptable. And then there are other applications where it's disastrous. And the other big fear that businesses are running into comes from employees. When you're introducing an AI tool to someone who works for you, they're asking themselves, is this the robot that's going to take my job? Am I training my replacement? How do you handle that? Is that fear founded? I'm going to throw this to Nadia first, but we're going to open this up to everybody.
So I worked in government for 15 years, and now I serve a lot of government agencies. And as you can imagine, they're very heavily unionized. That's the number one question that we get. It's like, are you going to replace my job? Because now AI can do my job. And I think the mindset needs to shift. Because this is not like one of those technologies, I hate to say blockchain, like blockchain used to be a big thing and everybody was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be on the chain, and then it just kind of vanished and floated into space. But now where we're at is, it really requires a mindset shift into this is not going to go away. I will get replaced if I don't adapt and don't use it in my day-to-day job. So kind of be more of a leader, somebody who's going to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to take one of my maybe processes that takes me manual intervention or takes a very long time and see how I can automate it. Where I'm seeing less resistance is when there's personal adoption happening. So as an example, Rena had mentioned vibe coding earlier. When you go from idea to execution in 8 hours or less, as an example, like we're talking about Gen Zs now. The next generation who's going to come in and going to take over all these different organizations, and we're going to try to attract them. What's attractive to them is, well, show me how I can go super fast. How can I create an app that doesn't take me days, it takes me hours? My 16-year-old coded an interior design app, she coded a finance app, and now she's creating a different one. These are all accessible things that never existed before. And she's not doing it by coding. You don't have to be technical anymore. This is all natural language. I dictate, I don't even type anymore. That's where your future is headed. So kind of thinking about what does the next 5 years look like, I think those are the conversations I'm having with leaders and say, let's try to educate your teams by having them do something meaningful with AI that will change their personal life. I think it's a very different take on, oh my gosh, doom and gloom, this is terrible, you're going to replace my job. No, it's more about, let's educate you to see how it can help you in your day-to-day, so that you can focus on more complex things and leave the routine stuff to AI.
Now, Satoru, when we spoke, you had a pretty particular thought about this.
Yep. So, as Nadia-san said, education is very important. And we Japanese people are already educated. So I want to say, Dentsu is kind of Japan's the biggest marketing agency. We conduct a quite interesting survey. Okay. Who do you want to talk to your deep mind? and we took the ranking. Number 3, best friend, right? Number 2, model. Number 1, generative AI. Number 10, father. Actually, this is a real result. So maybe it's a result from Japanese market. So I told the reason because maybe you know Dragon Ball is a kind of famous popular anime. The Doraemon. Okay, no. In Japan, Doraemon is one of the. In Japan, Doraemon and Dragon Ball is same popularity. Okay. And Doraemon is a kind of robot, really friendly, who helps the very weak child, like that. So when I was born, I was educated. AI and robot is a kind of my friend. So actually, I have almost no scare to use AI, and currently, right now, it's already helping me. So so this is one perspective, important perspective. So when people try to believe AI is just partner, not maybe you don't like that word. So
I said we often think Terminator here in the States, but when I'm explaining it to people in my column or just in my regular life, is I try to get them to shift and think R2-D2, you know, friendly, almost cuddly for something made out of metal, but also useful in a lot of different ways.
Yes, exactly. So sorry, I speak long, but we have 9 minutes. So, but that is last question, I know. So, by the way, I'm sorry.
Could I add to that? Actually?
Please do.
You know, if you think about the way that you're talking about it, when you were talking about it too, this idea of partnering with it, shifting away, we were talking about this as well earlier, shifting away from, yes, these are tools, but they're also partners. It's now you're communicating with it conversationally. And we actually just released a study that we did in partnership with the Advertising Council, which Salesforce and Dentsu are both partners with. It was in the US, and fun fact, it actually came out of a call to action around a roundtable at CES last year, so it was a nice thing. But we surveyed, my team with the Ad Council surveyed, I think, 1,500 US consumers across demographics and ages, et cetera. And we found one of the interesting findings was that they wanted to see more, almost like guidance in product content. So not only just statements like check your answers, there might be mistakes, but this sort of craving for more sort of how-to, like how do we use it? And so I think we have something there in terms of even maybe a call to action for the future. Like how do we continue to partner with the tools and help more people have that experience?
I know that when people are voicing their concerns to me, one of the things that often comes up is the bosses just want to cut costs, and I'm a cost. But John, when I spoke to you about this idea, it almost seemed like a foreign concept to you.
Well, we live in a very competitive world, and you can use AI, you can use the productivity gained from AI to reduce cost and even reduce force. That's one way to approach the benefits of AI. The other is to accelerate your business and deliver the commitments that you've made to customers sooner, to accelerate your own product development and move your business results from 2028 into 2026, accelerate revenue and accelerate earnings. And in a competitive world, there's going to be two kinds of companies. Ones that use the productivity gains to reduce costs, that is going to happen, and then others to accelerate their business and become more competitive. And I think those companies are going to be the winners.
Go ahead.
So another addition to that is also you open up the space for people to be creative or focus on more strategic things, potentially as well. So that is another sort of side to the productivity story, is sort of opening up that time for strategy and creativity.
Also, we did a similar thing. So because we're a marketing agency, we're focusing on creativity. And what we did is we prepared some agent which is learning the senior employees a way of thinking. For example, we prepare the agent which generates image using non-binary, but on the prompt, we ask the senior member's idea, and on the other hand, we prepare the grok, which is learning the senior creator's idea to generate the ex post like that. And the important point is basically the kind of the Meister tends to hate to use AI because they are better than AI. But for the young employee, this agent which learning the senior members is really helpful. So what we should do is just spread AI to young people. They have a lot of enthusiasm and they have an actual successful experience with which AI actually helps them. So that kind of collaboration is very important.
So if I'm understanding the general consensus here, it's to give your employees AI to enhance them, give your people superpowers basically, and then let them run free, because then they're going to do great things. Okay. Well, we're getting near the end of our time, so I kind of want to sum up the key points we've spoken about today, just so that we all have concrete takeaways. We started off basically saying that this is a strategy first kind of an approach. You need to ask what problem you're solving, whether or not AI is appropriate for it, and then worry about what tool you're going to use. Next, we discussed that everything runs on data, which means that if your data is a mess, your AI efforts are going to be a mess. AI is not going to help you if it doesn't have the right data to work with. We discussed the fact that these are becoming professional tools, and that learning about the certifications and standards that are developing lets us find what is reliable and what can be relied on. And then finally, that the goal is not necessarily to replace people, but to empower them. And we'll get better employees doing better work when we do that. Does that sound about right? Okay. Because of our time, we planned on not doing any sort of a Q&A while we're on stage, but we're going to be right out here in this corridor. So if any of you had further questions for our panelists, we're going to be sticking around for a few minutes out there. Please come chat with us. Maybe not me because I don't have any answers, but they do. So feel free to seek us out. And thank you so much for coming out. And thank you to our panelists for taking the time